And today we are talking about struggle and how often struggle is an opportunity. It's when we're annoyed, going through trial, that we often take the time to meditate or pray or whatever meditative practice we often use to escape or to find some solace even amidst that pain. And so, as we continue forward in this service, think about the times in your life maybe you've learned from trial, maybe not just meditatively, but through some other facet. And connect with some of the trauma or some of the trials that you still carry with you today. Often we can kind of miss that trauma, but a good marker is when someone does a little thing and we feel very strongly emotionally about it, we're carrying something forward from our past. It's not just about the detail that we noticed, the judgments on the passerby or even a friend, but it often, that heftiness, that immediacy of such a heavy-handed emotion often points to trauma undealt with.
Our first reading comes from Job 23, verses 9 through 12. When he is at work in the north, I do not see him. When he turns to the south, I catch no glimpse of him. But he knows the way that I take. When he has tested me, I will come forth as gold. My feet have closely followed his steps. I have kept his way without turning aside. I have not departed from the commands of his lips. I have treasured the words of his mouth more than my daily bread. Our second reading comes from John 16, verse 33. I have told you these things so that in me you may have peace. In this world you will have trouble, but take heart, I have overcome the world. And our last reading comes from Emanuel Swedenborg's Divine Providence, number 21. The Lord's divine providence works things out so that what is both evil and false promotes balance, comparison, and purification, which means that it promotes the union of what is good and true in others.
I think part of the message in our readings today about being tested and going through trials and coming out as gold don't always sit well with us. I think often we want to make it easy on ourselves, ignoring the truth that we often go through trials anyway. It doesn't matter what we believe. And so I think keeping those words in mind, that indeed God can use our struggles for further healing if we allow him to, is important. And many traditions talk of this, right? We talk about the process needed to find salvation or Buddhahood or nirvana. Often involves overcoming our trials. Indeed, most of the time it actually describes it as finally letting go of trials. So in a way, even though God uses trials to help us find salvation or nirvana, it's actually the process of letting go of them that naturally allows that salvation, that light of heaven, to shine greater within. We all know the story of Job. In our first reading, he shares that, the book of Job shares that through testing, we may come out as golden, as purified, and like a jewel almost, something precious. Indeed, as we read further in Scripture, we discover that that preciousness is at the root of our spirit, at the root of our consciousness. It's just that we become so bogged down that we lose track of it. We become mindfully or mindlessly disconnected from the intrinsic peace and love and wisdom that are called precious jewels in our scriptures. And so it's actually a positive message, this idea that our trials are transformational because we already know we have them. And so using them, allowing ourselves to react, to say, no, I don't want to be so upset anymore, is a positive. It's the best we can often do in reaction to the things that come into our lives. Just realize that we want things to be better. And I think ultimately, as we realize that most of those problems, that feeling of pain, of anxiety, of fear, starts in the rambling thinking mind, we find the true mechanism to escape it in meditative practices and turning to God. That's why our scriptures often say, turn to God. Turn to God to find joy and peace. Turn to God in your moments of trial and turmoil. I think often we may disconnect that idea, that repeated mechanism, with turning towards the meditative peace that we find in prayer, that we find in the present moment especially. Indeed, coming into the present moment, connecting with now, no longer thinking ahead in the same fashion. We may plan diligently, but that fearful thought that's always kind of circling back up into the future, that kind of angry thought that circles back to wrongs done, even that traumatic feeling that we bring into the moment in our actions against others, our judgments against ourselves, our self-hate, as shared last week, which often translates to external anger and hate. That disconnection with who we truly are, all sourced in our thinking mind, in our rambling, disconnected mind. And so taking that moment to be, noticing what's around us, asking ourselves, am I aware enough? Can I be more aware in the moment? Not shutting down our thinking entirely, but noticing as it comes up. Noticing those affections as they come up instead of just running with them. I think we become so attached, so identifying with our thinking mind that we are just in it. There's no reflection, no chance to turn to the peace of God. And so that's the first step, just noticing what's going on. Not to beat ourselves up, oh, I did it again. Oh, look at that, I'm thinking about that. Wasn't being present. No, but saying, oh, I'm actually noticing this. That is the beginning of presence. Just saying, oh, okay. There I go. Having some kindness for ourselves. Translates to kindness for others. As indeed Christ shared, we are one in the Spirit, one in God. It can be tough, I think. I think we're repelled by this idea that change is necessary to find salvation sometimes. I don't think it's about heaven or hell particularly for us. I mean, I think we can die immediately and we'll have a chance forever to continue to transform and find more of heaven within. But I think it really just comes down to brass tacks, what we deal with in every moment. It's actually serving ourselves to notice that heaven isn't full within. It serves ourselves to notice that we could do with more meditative practice, more present moment awareness, with the living God speaking to us, around us, known by many names, but seemingly always emphasizing that meditative presence in all our traditions. Often a practice used to help with this is noticing our breathing. Our breathing brings us into the moment. It also teaches us that we have some control and some not control over things like our breath, similar to our minds. We can put our mind on certain tracks. We can sometimes help it from just following along on random thoughts, fighting embattled thinking. But it's often hard to choose exactly what thought is coming next. It's impossible even. Like our breathing, it's impossible to control entirely. So noticing our breath, noticing our thoughts brings us into the moment in a way, but it also allows a greater peace within it. A greater peace. And that peace, that joy at the heart of it, that love and compassion, is what God shows himself, herself, to be all about. For our sake. Swedenborg believed that was the point of the universe. Funny enough, it's one of those questions that it's kind of made fun of in pop culture that no one could ever answer it. But at least there's some folks who seem to think they have. And Swedenborg was one of them. He believed that the purpose of the universe was empowering heaven. Empowering heaven within and in community. In a way, all the same. All the oneness in God. Because everything of heaven is from God. All the gifts of the Spirit. Of usefulness, of care, of love, of peace and connection are from God. He thought that was the point of the universe. And so we do ourselves a favor. When we lean into present moment awareness, lean into God, noticing our traumas as they come up, how often we're just annoyed, how often we're upset, in pain even. And yes, even physical pain, believe it or not, can call us to meditative practice, because as the studies show, that's one of the key ways to alleviate it. Funny enough, our science fits with our spirituality. And so let's take a moment together. Receiving, noticing that inherent heavenliness within a little bit more. In its diversity, in our community and outside of our community. No matter how serious your fear is, that thought is, that you've been carrying around, just letting it go. No matter how real something is to you in your past, or coming around the bend, just noticing that it's coming up and coming back into the moment. using the traumas of the past, those hurtful memories, and the ones that come down the line to call us to greater meditative peace, to spiritual practice and connectedness with divinity. Noting that we have a haven in our intrinsic connection with God and within our awareness itself. The light and warmth of the source of our compassion, of our wisdom and form. Allowing future tough moments to remind us to come back into being.
The list on my back, who laid these numbers out on the ground? Next time they make me tie the ropes, I'm gonna leave them slack and leave a little room to move around. Just breathe. Just breathe, just breathe instead. Who put the ticket in my hand? Who slipped me the drug in my hometown? Next time I leave it all behind, maybe I'll understand. I just need a little time to move around. Who filled my head with such a big idea? Who put these walls around me and told me to live? Who paved the road in the wrong direction and left no room, no time to forgive? And just breathe, just breathe, just breathe instead. Just dream, just dream, just